Okay.
We're live. Perfect.
Yay.
I want to thank everybody for coming to the first annual, hopefully this is an every year event, the Autism Support Summit. We're so proud of putting on this event. And Anna, we couldn't do it without your help. So we're so appreciative of all the hard work that you've put in. It really has turned into something really special, and we appreciate it. And certainly Marlee, and I know Alexi's going to be joining us soon. Your presentation was amazing. There's so much to learn, and I hope that all the people who are on the live now and the people who listened really sign up and learn more, because what you guys are doing is remarkable, and even all the presenters. It gives both Anna and I, like, it's so, we're so grateful to have people like you guys around out there doing these things, because you're the people who make a difference and help people every day. And that's really important. So I'm going to open it up now. I don't know if Anna, if you want to say anything, and just hopefully some questions.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I was just, oh, here she is. There we go. Hi, how are you?
Hi.
Good. How are you doing?
I was just, before we open it up to questions, was hoping you guys could tell, I mean, we did advertise a little bit about, who you guys are and what you do, but if you guys could put it in your own words, that would be great.
For sure. Absolutely. So we are Sensational Spaces. I'm Marlee.
I'm Alexi.
And what we do is we create sensory-friendly spaces within homes, community environments, and schools to make sure that all individuals are able to access and work and utilize all their different tools that they're able to do day in and day out in a very functional environment that helps them thrive. We believe that in the right environment, you will thrive. And so we just believe that every person has the ability to be successful, and we want to help make that happen.
Absolutely.
Do you have anything to add?
No, I think she summarized it pretty well. We work with schools, community organizations, families, and we help both with just consultative, with education, or with actually designing and setting up these different spaces to support your needs.
Okay. Well, I'm going to go ahead and let people ask questions. You guys can see those on the side here?
Yes.
Or no?
I can see it.
Okay, awesome.
One thing I was going to add here was that the fact that you guys want people to thrive and we do is just a coincidence. We all
I know it. That really is the funniest coincidence. I remember when we were first going back and forth, and I'm like, oh my gosh, it just clicked that, like, that's been our kind of like our catchphrase
Right.
for the last how many years, is in the right environment we all thrive. And now what a funny partnership that we're able to connect and collaborate, and you guys are one Thrive.
There you go. It's meant to be.
Love it.
So I see we have some people watching here. So we're going to open it up. You guys, all you have to do is write your comment as you're watching this on Facebook or YouTube. Write your comment in the comment section, and when it pops up, we can all see it, and then they can answer your questions.
I'll start out by asking you guys a question. It's kind of one Thrive based, but you guys have had the system now for a little bit of while. And what do you think are the best parts of the system that can help people who have, autistic children and then help support autism?
I think that's a really good question. I feel like each family is so unique and so different that, like, the needs of my family is different than the needs of Marlee's family. Then that's going to be different than the needs of, like, just because you have a child with autism doesn't mean that this one fit board is going to be exactly what you need. But being able to think about it like, okay, if your child has X number of therapies that they're going to, okay, maybe you guys want more of like a weekly layout, one of your small boards that has the days of the week on it. That way you can outline a little bit more in depth for an A&E PCA, whoever might be helping support with getting kids to these different therapies, like where they are, who they're with, that kind of thing. And then also just having the big calendar as a whole is super helpful. I could see there being a lot of different types of combinations. It just kind of depends on the unique needs of the family. I don't know, Marlee, do you have any thoughts on that one?
Yeah, I do. We use our like Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday checklist thing as a menu. And I know a lot of people do. But individuals with autism, we find in the therapy setting that often feeding and eating are really hard areas for them. And so there's just different preferences, there's different things. And I think using that tool as we set it out exactly like what we're going to have each night, but collaborating with the child and making those like choices and saying, oh, are we going to have this one or this one? And this one's a free night. That means you get to choose. And that autonomy we find is really helpful to kiddos. And I could see where that menu portion and working on that together and letting them have some input. And even maybe like mom and dad are having lasagna / the kiddos are having this. And that's just a collaborative process together.
I could even
cool.
see it being like if you had the white one and the black one, and like one was for a menu and one was for like week at a glance, because you can do both. And that's really the beauty of your boards, is that there are a lot of different types of combinations you can make.
Yeah, there's two things that came to mind when both of you guys were talking. One was that, when we built this, it was kind of like, hey, here's a platform for everybody to use it however they want. And it's been so much fun to see how people have used it for their families and for their best use, which is great. And then another reason why we did it was to be able to be interactive with your kids and sit there on a Sunday night and write things out for them to be able to see it. Both things are almost unintended or intended consequences that it's so cool to see happen and how it can help people. So
I wanted to just touch on too, somebody put in there, thanks like for the wonderful compliment of the presentation. I'm glad you got some good points out from that. Another thing is that all these tools you just learned, implementing them using your One Thrive station and talking about like having a breakdown, like here's a schedule. When you get home, we're going to try these 2 new tools. Which one do you want to try? And just using that as a visual, because visuals can help a lot of us. I know Alexi and I even are visual learners. And so I think displaying those new tools you learned, mom or dad, and presenting that so that they can see it. And it's not just a novel experience that they might be excited. Some are, but some are also hesitant on novel things. And so really allowing that in participation in visual schedule to help promote that engagement.
Right.
I think you guys kind of touched on this question with what you're saying, especially the whole using the board to create like a routine for this person and that person. But do you guys have anything else to add for this user, this Facebook user that has this question?
Let's see here.
Can you guys see that?
Creating a routine.
Yeah.
I think it kind of depends on what the needs are of your family, or of your, one kid who has both avoiding and seeking. And so with that, I think if your child has an occupational therapist or somebody that they're working with directly, you can get a lot of really good content by setting a little bit of extra time aside and connecting with them or shooting them an email, right? Because sometimes at the end of a therapy session, you don't always have time to dive a little bit deeper. But connecting with them about like, hey, what kinds of things are working and what kinds of things are not working in your sessions. Okay, these are what's working and not working at home. How can we merge the two together? And then kind of building it where if you have a child who is more visual and wants like pictures, you can build like a Velcro board, and you can even have that right up on your station too. Put it on the cork board portion, so that way their Velcro picture board is right next to the family board. So things aren't kind of all scattered over, just one central location for everything for the whole family can be really helpful.
I think even to start, and we always say we spent way too much money to get our degree, but looking and assessing at what time of the day, is it time of the day? Is it certain things they're avoiding or seeking? And kind of really assessing that environment so that when it comes to the making a routine, you can accurately assess and implement strategies to help. And so I even tell parents, take 2 weeks. And I know it's time, it's hard, but just observe. So when they get home, what are they doing? Are they seeking movement? Are they avoiding it? Are they avoiding the kitchen because there's different smells getting ready for dinner? Like just kind of observe your child, jot a few notes down per day, and kind of see that. And then start to think about how you can break down, even from our presentation and going back through that on the different senses and how you can kind of implement different things throughout the day or within to your routine to help kind of modulate and regulate throughout the day.
Sometimes that'll be called a sensory diet. If your kids are in OT or at school, sometimes they'll call it a sensory diet, what Marlee is talking about. Sometimes they'll just call it like implementing different strategies into your routine, but you might kind of hear it both ways. So if you hear that term, that's the same thing as what Marlee was just describing.
As someone new to my son having autism and sensory issues, where do you suggest to start helping him? Great question. I think that this one, first of all, I want you to know that you are supported and that there's so many people out in the community, and it can be overwhelming, right? I find a lot of grief happening and sometimes relief after you get a diagnosis to be like, whoa, thank goodness, that like describes my child finally, and I know what's happening. So a little bit of both. Give yourself some time to kind of cope and regulate. I am a huge component of getting set up with occupational and speech therapy. And so that can be in the schools, that can be outpatient, that can be in a hospital. Really depends on where you're based out of. I know that rural areas are a lot harder to kind of get that services that you might need, but even advocating, emailing their teacher to say, hey, like this is what we just got diagnosed with. Like, how is school going? Are there needs there? Because there's different, you can get an IEP, which is an individual education plan, or you can get a 504, which is modifications within the school. Outpatient therapy is often a little bit more intense, kind of gives you that direct parent education, can give you more things for home. But also just checking out our website. Alexi and I are really big components of education. We are treating occupational therapists as well with sensational spaces and creating sensory spaces. So on our website, we have a whole store of different ways to use equipment, what each sensory system is, and what that means in your child's system, and then like different strategies, it breaks it down. So we have those. And on our Instagram as well, we post like weekly things about different strategies and tools. But that direct therapy, I think will be your best bet to get individualized care. And really know like, hey, okay, so they're seeking, they're avoiding, this is kind of what they're doing. They'll do some direct assessments that will help you know. So then when you're looking at our different handouts and things, you can directly know what's associated with your child and kind of what you're seeing.
Absolutely. I think too, knowing that there is a difference between school-based therapies and outpatient therapies. So just because your child is getting services through their IEP or their 504 plan, those are all services that are directly linked to helping support their academics, whereas school might not be seeing certain things that you're seeing at home. And so knowing that that's okay, your home is their safe space. So oftentimes kids will show more of these different challenges at home. And so when you're able to connect with an outpatient practitioner, you're able to get a little bit more idea of, okay, here's what we can take what we're doing in the clinic. Here's how we can bring it home. Okay, this is what's working for us at school. This is what's working for us here. And trying to figure out across all these different environments, what is working and what is not. Because what's working in your house might not work at school, and what's working in the clinic might not work at your house. So trying to figure out where these different pockets, bringing it back to the environment in that right kind of setup, in that right structure, in that environment, you really can see some good positive shifts.
I think also I want to add that finding a sense of community, right? So there's a ton of like groups. If you just Google, even on Facebook, type in like autism groups or parent groups, there's so many groups like that. Even Alexi and I being in Minnesota, there's so many areas that have these different groups. So you can meet up at a park, and there's those that are kind of maybe having similar behaviors or presenting similarly, and that you can kind of get ideas from other parents, like what's the best clinic around, what's this, what's that, and you can bounce ideas or just talk and be like, this is hard, this is really hard, and just be together in community, because I think that can help all of us no matter what we're going through.
If you have specific questions about those kinds of things, please feel free to reach out to us too in our email or on our social media, and we can help try to get you situated with that. I see somebody said here that they have them in OT and in speech, starting OT soon. Your child has an IEP and you're looking at things to do at home to support with sensory issues. I think, like Marlee said, a really great place to look is if you go on we also have a free blog. So if you're not really wanting to purchase in-depth resources that we have on our shop, check out our blog. There's a ton of resources on things you can do at home. There's resources on what each sensory system is, kind of from a different lens than we talked about in our presentation that we gave for you all. But there's a lot of different things, kind of depending on if, when you're saying tough sensory issues, if you mean there's more like challenging behaviors, or if it's more like tactile seeking or more shutting down. It really truly depends on what those tough sensory issues are that you're talking about. The outpatient OT would definitely be able to support with that, like you said in your comment.
And if you have a specific question or behavior or challenge that you are experiencing at home, type it in the questionnaire. We can answer a direct question too, or a specific thing that your child might be displaying.
If you're comfortable.
I wanted to add, for whoever wants to follow up with them on the website we created for this summit, it has a link to all their different platforms, so you will be able to find them on Instagram or Facebook, or also their website. But we can add that here as well after the presentation, so you guys can have all those things handy.
Perfect, thank you.
And one question I had when I was watching, I was wondering is, a lot of it seems like you would need coordination with, if your kid is at school or like in some different activity. What is the best way to get other people who aren't necessarily experts in the field, but like have to be, around your kid, sort of on board with, your kid, what your kid needs?
So
I
are
think
you
having
talking
that-
like family members and stuff?
Yeah,
like that buy-in, kind of.
Yeah, like, if you just have like someone who watches your kid a lot, or where your kid goes over to their house a lot, or if they're on a team sport or something like that, like how would you approach, for example, a coach if your kid plays soccer and your kid is having some of these issues?
That's a really great question. These are all really good questions. I love it. But so if you have somebody who's in your child's life who is a soccer coach or a teacher, or somebody who, like a family friend who picks them up from school every once in a while, these different kinds of scenarios, being really open where you're able to, and just being like, hey, this is what's going on. And because I think so many people, they don't want to talk about these things. It's kind of like hush hush under the radar, or they feel uncomfortable talking about these things. But I think the more that we talk about, hey, everyone has a sensory system, right? Like the four of us, even right here on the screen, I can guarantee each and every one of us have a sensory quirk. I'm somebody who has a really hard time with auditory processing. If the TV's on and my husband pulls up some TikToks, I cannot listen to what he's also trying to tell me. Like, I have a really hard time filtering that. And so I think kind of bringing it back to even your own life, right? Like talking with them and trying to just make it more relatable, because we don't know what we don't know. And I think that's something where if your soccer coach is kind of like, hey, he's being naughty, it's like, no, he's not. Like, that's not what this is. It's not that you have a naughty child or that they're like trying to be bad. No one wants to be a bad kid, right? And so these are some things that we're doing at home to support them. Like, maybe try XYZ, or have you thought about da da da, and giving them some different tools and strategies that are working in your setting, and seeing if they have a little bit more openness. I think generally people, they want to see other people thrive, and your kids don't want to be like the troublemaker kids. So trying to figure out how we can all work together.
I think another thing I wanted to add there is that I've found some parents will make like a little, it's almost like a cheat sheet, right? This is my child. These are the things he's really good at. These are the things that we are working on. These are some different things you can try if they present, and just saying like, hey, we're working on some, like in a very positive light, right? Like, we're working on some things. This is my child. Like, I have it written down because I know, I even say it, like, if it's not written down, I'm forgetting about it. Like, see ya, it's in and out. And so just saying like, I wrote it down. Here's a little thing for you. Maybe you could review it in the time you have. I'd really appreciate it. So there's some consistency across environments for my child. Like, here's a little bit. And I think being able to reference back, right? We're not all perfect. I think the biggest one for me is like the number one system to shut down when we're dysregulated is our auditory system. I keep talking. It's like, I'm like, oh, and I keep talking. And so trying to slow that down is even hard for me as an adult. So being able to go back and say, oh, this kid needs short phrases. Like, I got to work on that. Like, that's why he didn't respond to me today. Instead of saying like, he was just off the walls and didn't want to listen. that visual again can help, and then they can always come back
Really
to
great
it too.
idea.
Yeah.
That's something too that totally goes for all kids in general, whether, I mean, all people in general, whether it's somebody with autism or not. I mean, what you just described, Marley, I don't know why I didn't even think to say that because I literally just made this whole big cheat sheet for my 7-month-old for daycare. And so it's one of those things where it's like, it doesn't have to be like, hey, my child has autism and this is exactly what that means, because it's going to look different day to day even sometimes, and that's okay. And having it be where it's like, this is generally what our routine looks like and this is how we structure our day. If you can try to like kind of match that as best you can, like that would be really helpful, so that way we have this kind of cohesive smooth transition between these different environments.
For
I
sure.
see somebody
I-
here brought up
Okay.
some
I was-
self-injurious behavior. Oh no, go ahead.
I was going to add, and we can get to that even in general, advocating for your kids, whether they're kids with
Yeah.
autism or not, and being okay with doing that is really something that I think all of us struggle with. I struggle with as a parent. It's like, okay, how do you stand up and tell somebody like this is the way it's supposed to be? And that's really important. And then giving yourself a break that like it's not always going to be perfect, and you just got to keep going forward and doing the best that you can is really, I'm sure it's a challenge in general. And these are just, everything is just tougher challenges that you're trying to deal with.
Exactly. I think something else that I like to bring up is like, what are you seeing? And I throw it on the other person too, to like, do you see any of these things happening, or what do you see? And so to give them buy-in as well and input, so you're not just talking at somebody, can be really beneficial as well.
Definitely.
Okay, so one more question. It looks like my son tends to bite, hit, or pinch. It happens if he's frustrated or even just randomly. I'm not sure what to do when this happens or to prevent it, if that's even possible. I love this system. I'm not going to lie. I always am like, give me these questions because I love it. It can be a lot of different things. It can be other things triggering these behaviors that might be occurring. But something that I often see is that when kids are getting that input, right? So they're hitting something, they're getting a force against their muscles, they're biting. We actually have the most amount of receptors in our mouth. And so if you're biting on something, you're getting deep input into your body, or pinching, you're squeezing. Even think of like when you're frustrated, or a kid will ball up their fists and their face just scrunches, every muscle is tensing. And that's our proprioceptive input system, and her proprioceptive system. And that system is often looking for input. So we talk about crashing. So maybe if these things are happening, I'm just going to throw a scenario out there. It might not be pertinent, but they get off the bus and they've held it together all day, and then they're losing it when they get home because they've kept it together. Getting some jumping and crashing things, a trampoline, setting up a like big pillow cushion where you can jump off the couch and crash into it. Giving the child something they can actually pinch. Oh, your muscles need some deep pressure. Let's squeeze the bear. Or can you do this? And just trying to redirect that as well. And giving them something to suck or chew on can help that mouth get some input, so they're not as impulsive. When that something triggers them, it's not like, oh, I'm going to bite. It's their system already has a little bit in. They might still do it sometimes, but there's a little bit less of that trigger force to kind of have that going. So anything like that targets that proprioceptive system. And we do have a really nice handout on our shop, a lot of information on our Instagram as well. And even in the video, we put together some different proprioceptive things like carrying, jumping, crashing, push-ups, wall push-ups, different exercise workouts, little things, pulling the wagon with their little, it's beautiful here in Minnesota today, and we're so excited. And so pulling the wagon again with some kids in it, or put all your toys in there and you are going to bring it to the park, or going to the park, right? Getting some of that input and just trying to structure that in so that there's hopefully a little bit more input to the body, so there's less of a reaction when something may happen.
Yeah, absolutely. The more you can integrate it throughout the day, it's going to be helpful, especially if it's something that you're seeing kind of recurring. Just having different tools on hands, having like a little oral motor toolkit where it's different, like really like chewy gum, like Hubba Bubba, not like Trident, but like big wads of gum, right? That gets a lot of that good input. Or having those Camelback water bottles, or that style water bottle where you're able to chew and suck on it. Plus, you're getting hydration, which is also great for our brains and our bodies. there's a lot of really wonderful tools out there. Please feel free to reach out if you have anything else like on that specifically. If we didn't necessarily target where you were getting at with it, we're happy to help you how we can.
Thank you guys so much for everything. Thank you guys for that presentation you guys put together. Thank you for your time right now. And thank you for helping us put this together. It has been very eye-opening for me and personally, and I know that I can tell from the feedback we're getting from our community and like the messages we're getting that this is something people are looking for. This is something people need help with. So thank you guys so much.
Thank you
Thank
for having
you.
us.
Thank you.
We really appreciate
And thank you
it.
everyone for your kind comments on the side here. We're so glad that that what we put together was helpful for you. That's one of our big things. That's why we do what we do, right? Is we want to be able to help and support people how we can.
Awesome.
All right. Thank you
Thank you.
guys.
Thank you
Thank
all.
you.